Evening, Kelly, Steve, Sandy, Gav Scott, Sky. How you doing, darling? You looking well? Keep going, doing amazing. Colin, Helen, Chesa, Steve-O, Sylvia, Diana, Diane, Tracy, Alison. Just waiting for Nath. Evening, Roy. Lisa, Anthony, Nashi, Johnny Radcliffe, Andrew, how you doing, bro? Lisa, Debbie, just while waiting for Nath, this thing with the general election that they're calling for, it's all bullshit, guys. If you have another general election, what's going to happen? You're going to get the other side of the coin. It's going to be exactly the same. Now, me and Nathan called it right when we called the EU, the MEP elections. They've told you they've got no say over there, but people still kept voting them in. Wanted to vote him in with. Why? We was leaving. If we're leaving the EU, why do you need this one? Evening,
Hello. Hello, Rob.
You know, why do we need MEPs if we're leaving? And me and Nathan called that, and we was backed up a week later by QCs and by Godfrey Blue.
And I might point out, it took a lot of reading and a lot of research to actually find out that we could have actually come out and we shouldn't have been voted in that election. It took a lot of research to find, because the EU wasn't forthcoming exactly with their process.
Angela, yeah, exactly. And we called it bang on. And we're telling you it again. The worst thing you could do in a general election is all vote for these scumbags. The best scenario in a general election is for nobody to vote, because then there'll be a vote of no confidence in the parliament, and they'll have to dissolve it.
Well, this is the thing. This is what a lot of people had a problem with last time when we said about the EU elections and not voting, because we shouldn't be voting in something we're not part of. People got to understand, this is to give consent to what's going to happen for the next 4 years. So you're consenting before the fact. So whatever party that you vote for, whatever party gets in, has got carte blanche for 4 years. You've already said yes to whatever they do. So you have a third option. It's to vote. You have a third, not to vote. You don't have to, just because you're on the electoral roll. In fact, actually, being on an electoral roll kind of does go towards giving consent. It's implied consent. I said, me personally, I am not on the electoral roll. I've refused to vote. I won't vote. How can I vote for a party I do not believe in and I don't want to be governed by? Because this is what you've got to understand, people. You think, well, we've got to choose out of these three parties. We haven't actually. If we don't all vote, and that will be what you call an overwhelming public no confidence vote in the government. Basically, it means that we just have no confidence in our government. That will do the biggest damage to the path they're taking and what they're doing to us we could ever do. As I said, we could completely shut down Parliament by not voting. Just say, no, we're not playing your game no more. And this is what people got to understand. It is playing their game. Voted in the EU elections, we played their game. I mean, we voted to leave, and we was meant to be out by law. But for some reason, we are, and this is the thing about law, where we believe we're still in, we believe we're under these contracts, we are under these contracts. I mean, we're now pushing towards, I would say, more and more of a situation where we need to avoid the ECA Act. I mean, because I'll put it this way. Most people talking about the general election. Okay, now, I don't want to talk about a general election because I don't think it's going to solve much personally. I think it's another way of just bounding the ball around and to waste a bit of time. Me personally, I'd rather talk about
2 seconds, Dave.
constitutional problems we have.
Carry on talking. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Right. I'd rather concentrate on the constitutional problems we have because we have major constitutional problems in our country, people. And despite what some people will say, we cannot fix this until we get the rule of law back. Basically, the people can change our constitution. We can change the constitution, but not until we get out of the EU, not until we get complete control of our laws back. Then we can change our constitution, so we can then start taking out the bits that the governments have stuck in there to try and sort of sideswipe us, like the 1911 Parliamentary Sovereignty Bill and bits like that, which actually does affect us, believe it or not. They're not sovereign, but they've tried to. And this is the thing, this is where the people now got to start taking an interest in your constitution. You've got to start taking an interest in your country and what's being done. We can't no longer just walk to the back of the bus and expect the driver to just do his job regardless. It's not working. The driver's jumped. You know what I mean? We're heading to nowhere. We're crashing fast, and I don't mean crashing out of EU. We're crashing into the EU. That's what's going to kill us. We're a bus hurtling at over 50 miles an hour, and the EU is the brick wall we're about to hit. And that brick wall comes in the form of a Lisbon Treaty, which is unconstitutional. In fact, most of even entering is unconstitutional. So we have actually got the option, if we could get it to there, if the people would back it enough and we could rise up and do this. Article 61 is the quickest and cleanest way to do this. We could actually avoid the EC Act. We can start getting rid of all the unlawful statutes because you've got to remember, technically by our law, the EU statutes are void by proxy, basically, because anything that goes against our constitution is void by the very fact. So the fact that we're consenting to it is part of the problem. We need to stop consenting. And despite what people think, and despite what the police and everyone think, consent is on an individual basis. I've argued with people about this many, many times, but sovereignty is an individual thing. Consent is an individual thing. What one person will consent to, another person won't. So consent is not done what people think. To a similar degree, yes, this is where people I think get mixed up. Where we consent to whatever party govern us, we consent to certain things. But as far as statutes and policing and certain bits, without our individual consent, they can't do it. The reason why they allow it, it's like the police. The biggest thing I'd say to show with the police is, for instance, that basically when they read you your rights and they say that bit at the end where they say, "Do you understand?" That actually means, "Do you stand under my statement?" That means, right, I've just made a statement. Do you agree? And you say yes. So you just agreed to what the policeman said, so therefore give him jurisdiction and give him authority over you. Most people don't know this. But it's personal consent. You have to personally consent. If you don't give consent, they can't do nothing. Well, they shouldn't be able to do nothing. And this is what people got to realise as well. There will be arrests in getting this country back. There will be people that will say this is where more the merrier. The more people that are willing to sacrifice themselves and take an arrest, I think the better, because they will not have the prisons or the FEMA camps to hold us. But there will be arrests, there will be things, because they will try their best to intimidate and scare people off this. And this is what we've got to start thinking about, people. Do we want our country or don't we? How much are you willing to fight for it?
But having said that, though, Nathan, if you're acting under Article 61 and you're doing it lawfully, yes, they might arrest you, but they ain't going to be able to hold you.
Well, this is where you've got to put conditions, condition acceptance, and certain bits like this is what comes with lawful rebellion. Because when you first initiate lawful rebellion, you pretty much you're removing yourselves. Basically, you give yourself a kind of immunity, a state immunity. You're immunising yourself against. I think it was last time I actually checked. I think this was a few years ago now, but I think the EU had put something like just over 14,000 statutes onto our books the last time I checked. So it's all them and pretty much all the laws. It is laws and statutes, not just statutes. As I keep telling people, it is laws and statutes. The only ones you're not allowed to break is the four main concepts. That's no loss, no harm, no injury, no deception in your undertakings. I mean, not to breach the peace is another one. As long as you stay in that remit. This is what we keep saying, and this is why we say to you all, make sure you're in lawful rebellion before you actually do anything to take this country back. And the reason why I say this is because most people, right, when they're convicted, most people convicted are usually on their first words, actually, that they state to the police officer on the scene. Okay, because crime is about your physical action and your intent. Okay, your mental intent. Okay, those are the two things that decide whether it's a crime or not: your physical action and your intent. What people don't understand is, if you're not in lawful rebellion, then your intent is unlawful because you haven't intended to do it in the right way. Your actions haven't shown you've done it in the right way. Like I said, you can't get for instance, you can't get an Article 61 form, fill it out, and just keep it and then wave it about like it's. You have to basically, you have to have. The reason why we always say we come up with a run of doing it recorded delivery is because you've got to keep throughout your lawful rebellion, and this is what we want people to start doing. This is why we're saying get all your letters, keep the originals, make sure you keep them safe, because you've got to document your lawful rebellion. Okay, so all the paperwork, all the notices you send off, everything like that, you need to keep a copy of everything you do. So if there's any discrepancies, you can come back and say, well, here's the paperwork from that. This is what's said. This is what was done. Again, your physical actions and your intent. If you haven't sent that Article 61 off and you haven't got proof of sending it, then your physical actions are not within the law, let alone your intent, because it would seem to be deceiving, wouldn't it? Because if you're not willing to send it off, but you're going to pretend you're in lawful rebellion, you're actually acting in deception. This is the problem with not sending it off. Best thing to do, and we've always said this is why we say recorded delivery in the way we do it, because even if it's a secretary, the fact that that oath has been, that declaration has been delivered, is the final proof. That is it. You're technically speaking. People got to understand it. Most people are quite patriotic and things like that. Like we've got the vets and certain bits like that. Since Article 61 has been invoked, if you're not in lawful rebellion, if you haven't taken that oath, you're technically not a citizen, a sovereign citizen of this country. You're not.
Implicit.
You're actually an outlaw. Yeah, you're actually an outlaw. And this is what you don't understand. Everybody who's taken Article 61, the oath, and actually sent the declaration off and done it in the right way, are the only justified sovereign members of this country. This is what we're finding is the problem. I mean, a lot of people say it's not in the public interest, certain bits like that. What we've actually found, we're doing a lot of reading and a lot of research for, well, a number of months now, just on this one thing. It is exactly this. It's to whether we are recognised as sovereign citizens or not. And at the moment, technically speaking, by law, the only citizens we have in the country are those who are in lawful rebellion, because anybody who's actually a citizen, who is actually a law-abiding citizen of Scotland, Ireland, England or Wales, will actually be in lawful rebellion. So for not to be in lawful rebellion, you are actually classed by law as an outlaw. So when people say, oh, you can't be a rebel, actually you can. Okay, majority of the time, no. Being a rebel or rebellion isn't exactly great. There's times in our history when rebellion hasn't been done right and it's been met. Actually, don't get me wrong. Usually, rebellion is done in the right way for the right reasons. Take, for instance, I think it was in the 1500s there was a rebellion. Didn't go too far. Basically, sort of started off well. They got to London. They started looting. The people of London basically turned on them and kicked them out of London. And then they was all arrested and pardoned anyway. But as I said, if people want to know who can, if you can take this over, because I hear a lot of veterans say this as well. In these very stories, if you look at, for instance, the arrests, the records of arrests and prosecutions for anything to do with rebellion, because there always is, as I keep telling you, there always is, because until you've got to understand, until it is proven that you are lawful, and you're actually saying, technically speaking, it's a grey area. That's what I keep trying to explain to people. So this is why you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to have your paperwork in complete order. Otherwise, you will fall on this. But if anybody who's worried about who can take it, like soldiers, serving soldiers actually as well, he's one of the ones I've been asked a lot about recently. In fact, you can't discriminate. Anybody who is a citizen can actually go into lawful rebellion regardless. There is no discrimination. This is why I say if you want to basically bolster and prove to yourself and find the evidence to prove that you can do it, if you go back in history to any form of rebellion in this country, if you look at the prosecution or the death toll or anything, you'll find in there MPs, knights, serving members of the military. You'll find everybody of every walk of life. You'll be surprised if you actually bother to read the history of rebellions. how many different walks of life actually banded together pretty quickly for the very. I mean, it puts us to shame, really. It really does. Like I said, and it was harder back then, I'd say, to go into law firm than it is now, per se. Considering that a peasant could have his head lopped off just at a sight, just looking at somebody of standing. I'd say it's a lot harder. But we've got to do it right. Like I said, this is why you've got to know. I mean, and saying that, mentioning the 1911 Parliamentary Sovereignty Bill, this is the reason why. Like I said, try and explain here the reason why we do it the way we do it. The Parliamentary Sovereignty Bill of 1911 kind of threw a bit of a spanner in the works. So we have to. This is why you have to notify your local constabulary. You've got to remember, since the 70s, we've had and this is the crutch of the matter, which a lot of people don't really want to speak about. Since the 70s, we've had major constitutional problems. We've undergone a slow overturning and a politicisation of not only our judiciary, but our police, everything, even our parliament, our House of Lords has even been politicised to the point where that needs major reform. Major reform. We've got to do it, people. And the only way to do this is by law. We're not going to do this by screaming and shouting in the street. The only way we're going to do this is by using law against them, because that's what they're using against us. Look at the very tools they use against us, people. But we have stronger tools than them. They have statutes that they've made up. We have laws that we made up. And it is exactly like that, because the Magna Carta is there because the people wanted liberty. And that is one thing. And I don't care how much you try and repress, the same as in China, all across. Look what's happening today everywhere now. What you can't do is repress people, because there is a burning desire in every single man and woman for liberty, for freedom, and that's never going to stop. It's just natural. So we're always going to want liberty. That's why we've got the Magna Carta. Because we wanted liberty, we wanted freedoms, we wanted rights, we wanted to be able to have peace within our lives, and that's what we did. Our ancestors rose up and they got us our freedoms, our rights. Something that's been used around the world since. It's a benchmark, people. Yes,
and if
MPs
people
can enter
think,
lawful rebellion too. Anybody can.
and if people think that the government haven't done this to the vets before, go and have a look
They
at the
have.
level of movement.
Yes. I don't mean the leveler. We don't mean the levelers as in the band.
No.
Basically, during the Great Revolution, there was
Yes.
a movement.
Yes. Military,
Uh,
ex-military, serving military. It was
well,
to do with it all.
yeah. Well, it started off basically. They're called the level. The reason why they're called the levelers is because there was a sort of a thing in the peasants' revolt before, where the peasants started basically. We've always had the right to roam. Always. We can go wherever we want. It's our land, not anyone else's. No one actually owned the land. This is a recent thing of land ownership as far as it is for the government. But what happened is loads of fences and land was starting to be sectioned off. So
Yeah.
a lot of peasants was going and they was actually levelling the fences. That's why they're called the levellers. It's actually a derogatory term given to the movement after. It's kind of a libertarian movement, basically. That's in essence what there was. There was a libertarian movement, which had the backing of the military. And they did actually go through full lawful rebellion, and they actually did it. They actually got. I mean, we're talking. This is where we have the freedom of press. Really, is from the levelers movement, because they're the ones that sort of took back the printing presses from the government. Slowly but surely, started taking over printing presses, and like we're doing now, putting out your own information. So instead of just getting governmental propaganda, there were a group of people actually managed to get printing presses and actually got it so they could actually start printing their own information for people to read.
Yeah.
We've been here before, and what happened is once the government had quelled, because they use the army a lot in a lot of this. The army was on both sides. It's like with the government. The government used the army to go against this, and the government have done this many times in our time when they use us. Not be funny, you have. Pretty much most governments around the world have. But as soon as they'd actually finished with the army, where there'd been obviously a massive campaign, and during times of rebellion, things like this, it's lawful on both sides really to sort of. It's not so much stealing. What they did is they liberated things like horses and food and certain bits like that. They didn't take anything more than they needed. That's the whole thing. You don't take more than you needed. You only take what you need for the effort. But the army actually did this, and then when and it was all said and done, the government repaid them by making them all criminals, making them all outlaws because they was stealing horses and stuff like that. They actually prosecuted the army that fought for them straight after it finished. Because there'd been so many dirty tactics, the government couldn't be seen to say yes to all this, so they just threw the army under the bus, like they have done many times. This is why I've always said, don't particularly see the army and government ever really going hand in hand, because one does not look after the other. Well, one does, the other one doesn't. It's not reciprocated. It never has been, actually, in my opinion. There's only very rare times in our history when government and the army, I'd say, are kind of a level pegging. But again, a lot of it's in the history.
Yeah, and that's the problem we've got. People don't look back at history. Because if you did, you will see this happens around about every 400 years.
Pretty much.
When we have
when we say that, it's basically what happens is round about every 350 to 450 years. It's round about then in our history. It seems to sort of be almost a calendar or event sort of thing. But around about 350 to 400 years, every time around that period, the people have to regain control back from the powers that be. Basically, what happens is we get complacent. We're allowed to be ourselves to be governed to the point of the governing then becomes into our everyday life. We have problems like we do now, and then we have to then take back control because these government figures don't want to lose control. It's like this general election. I personally think it's a farce. I mean, if anyone thinks it's anything other than who's going to have the power to piss about with this country, so for language, to piss about this country after we leave, you've got another thing coming, because that's all this is about. It's who's going to have the power when we leave. Because you've got to remember as well, when we leave the European Union, whichever party is in power is going to be one of the probably most powerful parties in the world. There's going to be some very, very influential people on there that can actually sort of make or break things. So like I said, another reason why, me personally, lawful rebellion, the people need to drain the swamp, sort this out ourselves, make sure we've got people in there that we can trust. Again, same as the barons. It's like our barons. I'd like to see, and I've said this many times, we've got a host of vets, and you can see the amount of patriots out there we have to choose from. We have some amazing people to choose from. I personally think we've got a very good choice. I think personally, after it's all said and done, I think we can pick 25 new barons, because we can. We can set 25 new barons into places, especially if they're dead or not in place. I think we've got some very good ones with the vets and some of the patriots out there. I think we've got a good selection. That's just with the barons. That's just to keep it, to make sure that these people hold our rights and liberties to their heart, to make sure this never happens again in their lifetime. We've also got a situation where we can start changing the MPs. No.
It won't be us, because I'm not interested. I just want the country back. Other people can go and do what they've got to do. I just want to get back to how it was before. Let other people who we can trust run it. But I don't want to be one of them. I ain't interested in that side of it.
Well, this is why I don't get into the whole sort of like leader and he said, she said crap things that I'm here just to educate. Our movement is here just to educate. We have no delusions of grandeur in that way. We are here just to educate. Once people, I'm sure people will be able to get to a point where we educate as far as we can, and they'll go on further than us. Like I said, but we're here to educate, and that is our sole reason. Don't really like doing the lives, let alone have the limelight, things like that. I mean, honest opinion, who would really want the job of sorting all this crap out? I don't envy the people that have to. Don't get me wrong, I'll always have my opinion, and especially when it comes to sorting out the constitutional problems in our country, I will be having my opinion, and I'll be making it loud.
But the one thing we surely all agree on now is that not one of them single scumbags who are in that parliament at the moment is capable or should be trusted to do it. We need a clean sweep with them. Remove a lot of them like they did in Iceland. And
well,
reinstate new.
Well, I'd say this, and I'd say this to Remainers as well, and I've said this to a lot of Remainers, and a lot of Remainers actually tend to be quite lost for words when I say this. They said to people, like, okay, at the moment, it's something we want that you're disagreeing with, and the government's not allowed, even though it's a majority and it should have gone, the government's not allowing it. So what's going to happen then when the next time comes around and you lot want something and we don't, and you don't get it? Are you going to feel the same way as us when you watch the government going against it? And a lot of Remainers actually start thinking and go, well, actually, yes, well, yeah. Because once you say, well, we all voted, fair is fair, you get some that will carry on. But when you sit and say to them, but what happens when it happens to you? What if this was you? Put yourself in this situation. What would you expect the government to do? Majority of them come out with the exact words without even thinking of it and go, well, I'd expect them to abide by my vote. If I voted, if I want my vote, because they're already doing it. They're saying, well, I voted, it was close, I want my vote to be counted. Well, yeah, well, you've got about as much chance as that as ours. The only reason why you're getting anywhere, the people that remain, is because you've got all the people in government wanting the same as you.
And of
What
course,
happens when they don't want the same as you? You'll have the same.
the next election, say it's 51-49. What are you going to do? Keep having general elections? It's either democratic vote or it's not. You can't
Exactly.
keep voting. And the Ben Act is treasonous. The
Well,
Ben
I'm
Act
actually really
gave
upset with
away
Ben.
your sovereignty.
That's the thing. I'm actually really upset with Ben because considering Ben has been quite a staunch constitutionalist and stood by our constitution pretty much all of his career, I would say this is the power of money, people. This is the power of payday. I mean, why would somebody with such staunch morals, after what, 35 years, just over 35 years, completely change his mind to go the complete opposite way? What could make a man do that?
Jezza had a good idea earlier when he spoke to me on the phone. It was quite a good idea, actually. Is somebody should walk into the Parliament and say, right, everybody who wants to remain, stand up. And when they stand up, remove them completely. Say, right,
Yeah.
those of you who are left as doing the right thing. Now let's crack on and get it done. It should be that simple.
Yep. It doesn't even need that. Just whoever voted to remain or keeps a vote. I mean, personally, you've got to be very careful because there is some constituencies that vote to remain, and the MPs vote to remain because they're voting with the constituents. Therefore, then people should stay. But I'm telling you now, all the ones that are from leave constituencies that have voted to remain when their constituents want to leave, they're the people that are going. Like I said, people think this, oh, but it's a way we can change it. It's a very slow and I would say not 100% way by general election. It's not going to solve anything. All it's going to do is decide who's in power when it all goes through. And we've already seen that it's not even our prime minister that's in power. I mean, Macron has got more power over our withdrawal than Boris has. That is ridiculous. But EU law has made that way, and we've done that because we took a situation, we got our laws back, and we had it so our laws was paramount for the leaving process. Then what did we do? We went and voted back in the elections and put everything back over to them again. So we basically just gave everything away again. It's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. But again, this is why we've got lawful rebellion. Treason is still a hangable offence.
Yeah, what people have got to remember is, and this is good for any country, with any parliament, like our country, you've got 649 people running roughshod over 60 million, telling you what to do, when to do it, what you can do, what you can't do. That's fine if the laws, like you say, doing 17 or 30 miles, that's fine. Not a problem with that. But some of the laws that they're telling you can do, where you've got to do this, you've got to do that, we've got to enter the Lisbon Treaty, we've got to adopt the Euro by 2022, all this type of shit. You've got 649 people telling 60 million people that's got to be the way it is. Well, I don't think so. I think if 10 million people rose up, or just 17.4 million all rose up, walked down to London and stood outside, got all the correct paperwork, and said to the police on the door, give that to them, we want them to be removed because they've committed treason and we want them arrested, etc., etc. I don't think they'd go against 10 million. Myself.
Well, this is the thing. No, it's like our action. We're trying to plan ourselves out. The reason why we're taking so long in getting this done is because it's not just going to be go and do like car and citizen arrest. This is going to be doing it in a different way. So what we've had to do is we've had to do a lot of research into previous things that have been done like this, previous paperwork, previous processes that have been initiated. What actual laws and processes are out there as well now? It's not just a case of we can dream up whatever we want. We can use parts of the Constitution and ignore parts. We can't do that, okay? There's one thing you've got to understand. Our Constitution stands until we change it. So you can't say, well, I'm not going to, well, unless you're in lawful rebellion, you can't say, well, I'm ignoring that, but I'm going to accept that. You can't do that. Our Constitution is our Constitution. It's there no matter what. We allowed it to get to this state. It's us that's going to have to clean it up, I'm afraid. But our Constitution is our Constitution. You don't get to pick and choose. It is there. That is it. We can only deal with the
Collins
matter
just
after
said
the fact, right?
Boris didn't sign the letter asking for another extension. So does that mean another extension is illegal? Well, yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, the first extension was illegal. May's extension was illegal through and through. That should never have happened. That was illegal. The only reason why that happened is basically the people backed it, and this is what you don't realise. They often do something and get you to back it, like, for instance, voting in new elections to consent to it all. Like I said, you consented to what the EU want to do.
Listen, everything that's happened since the 27th of June 2016 has been illegal. Because we voted to leave on the 26th of June 2016. 27th of June, the vote was counted and it was leave. Everything from that day that stopped us from leaving has been illegal.
Well, the Withdrawal Act actually states quite clearly 2-year period. If a deal hasn't been negotiated within a 2-year period, an automatic lawful default is leave with no deal. And for some reason, May and co seem to think that they can do whatever they want, change. I mean, especially Burkow seems to think you can just change laws to make what they're doing legal. They can't do that.
You can't.
I mean, that's another thing as well. It's like, this is why I want the 1911 bill gone, because that's another one that basically it destroys war prerogative. This is what people got to understand. We are going to have to sort our constitution out.
Yeah. I mean, at one time, guys, the Queen used to be able to just step in and dissolve Parliament. But 2011, without asking us, they went behind everybody's back and come up with the act. 2011, Nath, they've done an act that said the Queen can no longer dissolve Parliament. 2011 act. Go and have a look at it.
It's a 1911 that started all that. The 2011 one. That's basically just an abridgment of that. It's an amendment to that.
Yeah, but they made the Queen sign it. Yeah, they made the Queen sign it to say under no circumstances ever again can she just come along and dissolve Parliament. It has to be a 2/3 of the House vote before to agree with that. Now, when everybody's tyrannous, do you think that's ever going to happen? And that was done behind your back, guys, in 2011.
Basically, what's happened since we entered the ECE, and ECA for that matter, people seem to think it's our government. No, it's not. We've been under EU rule. Our government have just been doing what EU tells them to do. And what's happened is basically so the EU don't get a bad name when all our coal mines and everything shut. It was our government that did it, not the EU, but it was actually the EU. Everything is done to come in line with the EU and coming with the EU project. So don't keep thinking it's our own government. Yes, they are complicit. They've done it. They've done it because, technically speaking, by law, they had to.
Yeah.
This is what our MPs have done to us. It's absolutely appalling. Excuse me.
And they'll continue to do so.
Yeah.
They will continue to do so because they've got no scruples. Because they're all right, thank you very much. It's never going to happen to them. They've got nice lifestyles. And will continue to have, even after retirement. It's only the normal, every working day, working class man and the middle class that's going to copy it, not the rich.
I mean, this is what worries me, the way things are going, unless we step in, and we do have to step in. Unless we step in, we're going to see possibly a return to the 2-tier system, 2-class system. You've got the upper class and you've got the lower class. There will be no middle class. That's the one thing that the upper class want rid of. They want rid of the middle class. The worst thing that ever happened to the upper class was allowing the peasants basically to bet themselves. They don't like it. They don't want it. which is something we need to preserve. We need to preserve a lot, like I said, especially with our constitution. We have, like I said, the constitutional crisis we're in at the moment is dire. It is dire to the point where we're about to lose all of our freedoms, all of our liberties, everything. People seem to think that human rights declarations that have been made by the EU and other parties somehow replaced them or made it. It hasn't. They can be amended, taken away whenever they want. So what you're doing is you're giving up something willingly that was given to you in perpetuity. So your right to freedom can never be taken away to you. It was given that by the blood of your ancestors. What we've done is slowly been allowed ourselves to be nannied, and slowly but surely, because they never do it in one big swoop, slowly but surely, bit by bit, they've just taken it all away from us, and they've got us to rely on a piece of paper that, technically speaking, is only in force if they want to. The ECJ don't have to abide by any of the human rights acts or anything like that. They can absolutely ignore them. But you can't ignore the Magna Carta. That's where all freedom and liberty, technically speaking, comes from in the world, modern world anyway.
Well,
So
like I
this is why
say
people
again,
get to
use it or lose it, because at the end of the day, you
totally.
can all sit on the fence and do nothing. And I'm not on about the ones who are on here and not the active people who are being active. We know all about them, guys. We know you're all doing a great job. I'm on about the masses now who are sitting there. I've got relations and family the same who are doing nothing.
Can I just
But it's going to come back to
Tracy
bite
there?
them in the ass.
Tracy Murray, the law on signing under duress is if you sign under duress, okay, it technically by law it means it's not your action, so you didn't willfully do it. Like I said, your physical and your mental intent wasn't there, so it is not your. By law, when it all boils down to it, it wasn't your action. You've done it under duress. It wasn't your intent. It wasn't your will. So technically speaking, by law, that is not your action. So you're not liable.
Which to say happened with the Magna Carta. But what people don't realise, we was at war. And if we hadn't signed it for the barons, he'd have had to sign something else to give us away to somebody else because we was at war at the time.
Yeah. That's what people don't realise. It was in certain cases. It's like
the barons
to answer
acted
the
on
thing
our
about duress
behalf.
again. Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
and that's what they're meant to do now. I mean, we are in a situation where, technically speaking, I would quite openly state that our barons aren't acting in our constitutional interest. Basically, I think they basically tried. I think it fell flat on their face because the public didn't get behind it, and I think they just sod it. But doesn't matter. They are duty bound by law. If we go into lawful rebellion, we take it up. They have to by law. If they don't, we have the right to replace the barons. And this is what I'm saying. We have a lot of rights.
Yep.
We have a lot of rights under Article 61 to do a lot basically we're allowed to do whatever we want as long as you don't break, no loss, no harm, no injury, no deception in your dealings, and do not breach the peace. Then we can do whatever we want. We are immune from law, basically. And this is the thing, but you're only immune from law if you do it in the right way. This is why we say it is a process why we say you have to notify your police, your council, everyone. You have to notify all the authorities in the right way. I mean,
Right.
I've often said as well, it's like, if you want to go a bit further with the pact that we've done, you can always send to the police and that law a conditional acceptance.
Well, you all remember the other day, and you know, when I was live with Craig. Right. Well, I've been sent some more information, guys, about our brothers and sisters in South Africa. Two huge Russian bombers have landed there. No one knows why at the moment. There's rumours that there's more military equipment coming in through Zimbabwe. I also got a tip to watch Botswana and is waiting for more information. So it looks like Russia have got more balls than any of the European nations. They've already took a load of refugees in, and it looks like they are going, and they are actually going to help South Africa. And this is why, with the EU army, which you've all got to wake up to before it happens, this is why they want to get all our kids, 16, 17, 18, and send them off to war against Russia, because they don't like Russia doing things like this, because it's interfering with their New World Order agenda.
They want one world government, one world religion. They want control of everything, and the only way to do that is narrow it down to one component. Right, to answer Tracy, Murray again. Right, Tracy, thank you. Actually, Tracy, you've got to come up with some really good questions. Thank you. Yes, Boris can just come out no deal and take a nicky for it. It would be, in my belief, we can use exactly what they use against us, and if it's not in the public interest, if the public don't want Boris prosecuted, he doesn't get prosecuted. Because it's our money that pays for the prosecution. If we don't want to use our money to pay for it, we don't pay for it. It's not in the public's interest. You mean they'll have to eat their own words at some points. Trust me.
My wife's watching, my beautiful wife.
Hello,
But
Miss
yeah,
Clarke.
so what we'll do, guys, we'll keep you informed of what's going on in South Africa as and when we get it on the live feed. We'll keep you informed because you ain't going to hear it on the news. Put it that way.
Well, this is the thing. This is what people got to understand. It's like a lot of people don't understand as a movement what we do. I mean, we're called Constitutional Movement Worldwide. We're actually got groups in many different countries. We do a lot of different things. Like I said, we're not just trying to get this country to rise. We're trying to get many countries to actually rise and take back their constitution, because we're starting to see, not just in our country in Europe, but around the world, they're starting to change towards this new world order crap. So we're trying to get everybody to stand up. So we're not just working with people in this country. I mean, we've done work with our group in Australia, and we've dug through their constitution. We found they actually have Article 61 as well. And we're hoping to sort of go through other people's constitutions and help them out with that as well. And I mean, technically speaking, it means Australia could actually come out in Article 61 with us. They do actually have the Queen as the head of state. That's why they technically have it there. But they have, I mean, there's a lot in people's constitutions they don't understand. So we're not just doing this country, we're trying to get many countries to rise. But yes, we are mainly solely concentrating on our country because it's the mother of constitutions. It's the one that led the way, and this is what we're trying to do. But there's no reason why we can't have the backup of our brothers and sisters around the world. This is one thing we do have in common: our liberty, our freedoms, and our want for that.
Yeah, and there's an old saying: the strength in numbers. So the more, if we can get every country to rise up at the same time, that's less chance of having troops from other countries to come here because they'll be too busy dealing with their own country.
That is the method behind the madness, in a way. Yes, that is part of it. The whole point is to start as many fires across the world as possible. So they're busy running around putting out the fires while the people get to sort out the problems. Like I said, numbers will prevail. Numbers will prevail.
So we're busy, guys. Just because we're not out on the streets, we're planning other things. We like I said, with Craig. I'm in touch with Craig. It keeps me informed of things. We've got to support our brothers and sisters there as well. Yeah. It's the way it goes.
And everybody across the Commonwealth as well. We are the mother of all constitutions. We are the ones that have to help protect all other constitutions that come from ours. It is our duty. Well, that's how I feel anyway, and many others do. I mean, these are our brothers and sisters. We are linked through a constitution.
Exactly.
Trying to use that.
We've
it's the thing, because it's the thing. A lot of people, like I said, they'd seek me, but we do help people on a daily basis as well. Not only with lawful rebellion and certain bits like that, processes with council tax, certain bits like that. We help in many different ways. So just because we're not like doing an action every year or so, doesn't mean we're not doing anything, because we do it every day. I said we don't get paid for it. We don't want money for this. This is the whole point. I would like to see a return to where we didn't have to get repayment to actually do something nice. I mean, what's wrong with having a nice feeling because you're doing something right? What's wrong with that? I mean, that should be all the repayment we need, really. To see our brothers and sisters, not in just this country, but other countries thrive and protect themselves with the Constitution. Good enough for me. Good enough for me.
Yeah. So, let's just hope that, things start to improve over there, because they're having a hell of a time at the moment over there. And like me and Craig said, you've only got to look at the knife crime here and who's doing it to see that we're heading the same way. If we don't wake up, guys.
You've got to remember, this is a cultural thing.
Yeah. It won't be long before, when there's enough of them here, They start thinking, oh, well, there's enough of us here now. There's in this particular area. We'll start doing what they're doing in South Africa. We'll start going and stabbing them and taking the houses and that. Our government ain't going to do nothing. You've seen what they're doing with the knife crime in London as it is. Sadiq Khan's like this.
Well, there is actually people being. There's already people being forced out of areas by intimidation, certain bits like that. We're already seeing all this happening. It's just it's not publicised.
It's not on the news, but it's happening, guys.
And this is what people got to realise. It's about time we stepped up as well, people, because we need to get in lawful belly. I want to do this lawfully. My main goal, and everybody in our movement is our number one priority, to make sure everybody is protected as much as possible before the fact. Because that's the reason why Article 61 is there. It's to protect yourself lawfully before the fact. So you get lawful coverage. That means you have lawful excuse, and then you go and act in a lawful manner. What you don't do is go and act and then try and get a lawful excuse afterwards. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so you need to do it in the right way. You need to send your rebellion form off. It needs to be done in the right way. It needs to be signed, sent. The process the process has been there. You can't change it. It is the process. You don't get to pick and choose how you do it. There is only one way to do it.
Listen, guys,
and the reason why I say we need to get onto this and that, I mean, have a look what's happening over Europe in general and across the world. Many countries are standing up to more oppressive governments than ours. This is why we're starting to look like a laughing stock, people, because for many, many centuries, we was a nation that went out and fought for the people, for the underdog. I know a lot of people are going to say that's crap, but technically speaking, no, it wasn't, because that's what the people were fighting for. Just because the elites wasn't, doesn't mean that's not what the people were fighting for. And now we don't do that. We don't fight for the underdog. We don't, unless it somehow benefits us, we don't bother. And that's sadly how our culture and our heritage is being absolutely devastated.
I mean, how bad does it look, Nate, when a little country like Iceland shut all their corrupt banks down, removed the parliament, replaced it, kicked out the bankers, brought new bankers in. Now Iceland is thriving again. Yeah. And that was only 4 or 5 years ago that happened. Yeah, so it can be done, guys. It can be done. If
when we lose the fear.
Don't forget, and that's because majority of the Icelandic people said we've had enough. Started with one person banging pots and pans outside the parliament. Then there was 2. Then there was 10. Then there was 100. Then there was 1,000. Then there was 20,000. Then there was 100,000. And it just went on and on and on. And in the end, they come out and asked what all the bother was about. And they went, that's what all the bother's about. We want you removed. And they had to go because there was a vote and no confidence in the people. And they had to go. It was simple.
Yeah. I mean, this is where people like going into lawful rebellion. You've got to understand, entering into lawful rebellion is actually a direct action within itself. So even just going to lawful rebellion, you've actually done a direct action, and you're going to be doing an ongoing, as long as your lawful rebellion is open, or you haven't got redress, then you're constantly doing a direct action. The fact that you've entered into lawful rebellion is more of a direct action than most people are doing. I can assure you that, because it's a lawful direct action. So go into it. Like I said, so you're so straight off, you're doing a direct action. And anything you do after that can only help. So until we actually do these things, and again, I will say, I wouldn't put down just because because we've done it and a couple of other groups have done it where we put the police out on notice. Everybody should be doing it. I think everybody should be putting every single authority on notice, saying, I know what you're doing, I don't agree in it no more, and this is what you've got to do. You've got to give to get lawful excuse, you've got to give reason. So you've got to say, look, I am not going to pay taxes, I am not going to fund this, I am not going to do this, and you've got to show a bit of proof. One thing you can do as well, I've had a bit of success with a few people recently where it's still touch and go whether it's going to be accepted or not, but some people are now putting in, when they notify their police station, for instance, they've put in evidence of Article 61 being invoked back by the Barons back in 2001. They've put a lot of other stuff in there as well. Basically, what it is they've put as much information to prove what their lawful stance is and the reasons is possible, and that seems to be going a lot further at the moment. So that's what I think we should be pushing. People need to start now actually putting police and authorities on notice, but give them your lawful intent. So tell them the reasons why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Don't just say you're doing it. Give it. I mean, you can have that on a separate piece of paper with a little note, conditional acceptance thing. Say, look, if you stop doing these, and if you can prove to me that my taxes don't go on this and my taxes don't pay this, I'll pay them. Put them on notice. We can do this. Everybody has a right. It's not. I keep saying this. We don't just need one lawful rebellion group. In technically speaking, it's not really like that. We all individually have all the rights. So whatever we're doing, every single citizen has that right. So it's not just down to us.
Exactly.
It's not a case
Listen,
of just following us.
there's nothing stopping people in Manchester, Liverpool, London, Newcastle, Coventry, wherever you are, Exeter, Bristol, getting your own lawful rebellion group in your own town or city and doing actions under lawful rebellion. There's nothing to stop you.
No,
You
I
haven't
mean
got to
this
rely
is
on
what we've been.
one group. You can all do
No,
it. Once you're in lawful rebellion, everybody's equal. You're all the same.
exactly. There is no rank in lawful rebellion. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's best, and we've always said best person for the job. So if you're trying to do something, you don't. Put it this way: if you broke your leg, you don't ask a butcher to fix your leg. You ask a doctor, don't you? So you've got to be sensible with it. But technically speaking, in lawful rebellion, there is no rank. Everybody is
No.
completely level. So no
Yeah.
man is above any, because no man is above any other in law, and no man is above
No.
the law. We are all
Or
equal in the
woman.
eyes of the law. Or woman. We are all equal in the eyes of the law. So it doesn't matter what I do. Every single person that listens to this now has a right to do everything I do. It's not a case
Yeah.
of let me do it and you just follow me. We don't want that. We don't want
No.
people to just follow us. We want you to be doers. It's like Gary says.
Yeah.
We've been trying to get this sort of, and we did have it with the Dragons. Since we've moved to this new movement, we haven't really had that, but we are getting it in similar ways. We do want regional groups to stand up and do actions. That's the way we're going to do it. Like I said, start many fires, but at the same time, it's harder for them to put all them out. Like I said, they'll be running around like headless chickens. Instead of just one massive action, we need to do many small actions. That has always been our way. That is what we've always said. Read the history of lawful rebellion. It usually lands up in a big, massive surge on London to Parliament, but it never starts that way. It never starts that way, and we're never going to get anywhere by just pushing for that straight away. What we need is people to start believing in themselves, and that will be on a local level. Everybody can actually
Yeah.
do something at their local level to actually, in lawful rebellion, to actually frustrate the government. I mean, you're actually duty bound to. This is what you've got to understand. The law tells you have to frustrate these people, so you have to be a thorn in their side. You have to be as irritating as possible. It actually states that in quite a lot of things. You have to be as irritating as possible. You have to really, really make yourself a proper problem for government, and that's your lawful duty. You're actually duty bound to do that. But we can do this. I mean, what we'd like. I mean, we are starting to do them now. A lot of people have been talking to us about sort of doing some workshops, basically about talking about what we've been talking about tonight, but trying to get it to local areas. We are trying to do that as we speak, arrange a few things. Again, we are just human. We don't get paid for this. We don't have a bank account. We don't get funded or anything. So we have to come out of our own pockets. So please bear with us. That's why we're asking. If anybody can get a venue sorted, I'm hoping pretty much we can do the rest of it. It's just the venues that we are having a problem with getting hold of. Once the venue's obtained, then I think we've got the stuff to do it, even if it would be a DVD and someone just plays a DVD in a hall. We're going to do it so basically we can get the information out to whoever wants to hold a workshop. We'll give them the information, whether that be in a DVD format or us there in person. We're going to find some way of making sure that this can go to a local level now.
Yeah.
So please bear with us. There's a lot of work involved in it, a lot of work. No, it's not socialism.
No.
What it is basically no one is basically it's a maximum law. No one, everybody is equal in the eyes of the law. That's not socialism. It just means that just because you have money doesn't mean that the law benefits you any more than it does someone who doesn't have money. Like I said, everybody is equal in the eyes of the law. So it doesn't matter whether you're a king, an MP, a road sweeper, or a football player. You're all equal under the eyes of the law. No man or woman is above another. That's not
In other
socialism. That is just
words,
how it should be. No one is more
in
important
other
than anyone.
words, like as it stands at the moment, if you've got a problem with somebody and you're poor and they are rich, because they can afford the best barristers, etc., they're going to beat you. Under common law, it doesn't work like that. You have 12 peers who hear what he's got to say and hear what you've got to say, and it doesn't matter who's the richest and who's got the most. It's they'll listen to both sides of the story and they make the decision. That's not socialism.
No,
Socialism would be socialism is when you say somebody's got 100,000, somebody's got nothing, and they try and make the one person give the other one half.
yeah,
That ain't what we're saying. If you've earned money yourself or whatever, that's fine. It's the law